Hey guys, welcome back. Tonight, we're diving into one of the most mysterious journeys your body takes every single day. The world inside your sleeping brain. Science can map galaxies, split atoms, and land robots on Mars. Yet, it still can't fully explain what happens when you close your eyes. Why does your mind dream, forget, and sometimes even wake while your body stays frozen? From ancient temples that called sleep the little death, to modern labs still chasing its code. Tonight, we'll uncover 6 brain phenomena that science still whispers about. Moments when your mind becomes stranger, wiser, and far more alive than you think. So before you get comfortable, take a gentle moment to like this video and subscribe, but only if these deep sleep history stories help you find peace, sleep better, or simply reflect on our shared journey through time. Now, close your eyes, slow your breath, and let's explore what happens when the brain dares to dream beyond science.
Have you ever lain in bed, completely exhausted, your body sinking into the mattress, but your mind still spinning like a broken record? You close your eyes, but thoughts keep whispering. Memories, worries, random scenes from nowhere. You tell yourself, please, just sleep. Yet your brain refuses, as if it's guarding a secret. Why does this happen? Why does the brain fight rest when the body has already surrendered? For centuries, people believed sleeplessness was a sign that something, someone, was trying to reach them. In ancient Egypt, the priests of Ra called sleep the little death. They believed that each night your soul wandered through a parallel realm to meet the gods. The Egyptians even prepared their sleeping chambers like sacred tombs. Low light, sweet-smelling oils, cool linen sheets. The perfect environment for the soul's nightly journey. Meanwhile, in Greece, poets wrote of Hypnos, the god of sleep, who lived in a cave by the river Lethe, the river of forgetfulness. It was said that Hypnos's wings brushed gently over the world each night, silencing all pain and thought. But not all minds were willing to follow. Some, they said, were too full of phos, light, awareness, unfinished thoughts that kept them awake. Modern science might call it hyperarousal, but the mystery remains the same. When the body rests, the mind still wanders. Sleep, it seems, is not a command. It's a delicate negotiation between consciousness and surrender. Neuroscientists now map our brains with glowing images, tracing the waves that ripple through our cortex when we drift into dreams. They can measure the rhythm of our neurons, but not the reason behind their resistance. Why does the brain refuse to power down? Perhaps, like an ancient priest, it guards the doorway between two worlds, the waking and the dream. And when that door creaks open, just before sleep, strange things happen. Flashes of color, phantom sounds, the sudden feeling of falling. Science calls these hypnagogic phenomena. The ancients called them omens. But in that fragile borderland, something in us remembers. We are more than bodies. We are stories, still unfolding, even in the dark. Long before brain scanners and sleep labs, humanity already sensed that something divine was hidden inside the act of closing one's eyes. In the desert temples of ancient Egypt, priests recorded the dreams of pharaohs on papyrus scrolls. They believed dreams were letters from the gods, written not in ink, but in light. To them, every dream was a message that crossed the fragile bridge between life and eternity. Sleep was not a pause, it was an initiation. When night fell, the body rested, but the ka, the vital essence, awakened, free to travel beyond the limits of flesh. This belief shaped the Egyptian obsession with tombs and afterlife rituals. Death was simply the longest sleep, and sleep was the rehearsal for it. To dream was to train for immortality. Across the Mediterranean, the Greeks embraced a similar reverence. They built temples of healing, asclepiones, where patients would lie down in sacred silence, waiting for dreams that could cure their pain. The god Hypnos, brother of Thanatos, death, and son of Nyx, night, was said to drift over the earth with poppy flowers in his hair, breathing calm into every living being. His touch could silence storms and wars alike. To sleep, then, was to be briefly touched by divinity. But beneath these myths lies a question that modern science still struggles to answer. Why do we dream at all? If sleep's only purpose were to rest the body, why would the mind awaken within it to create entire worlds, fantasies, fears, and faces we've never seen? Some scientists propose that dreaming helps organize memory, filtering what matters from what doesn't. Others think it's emotional therapy, where the brain rehearses survival. Yet none of these answers explain the wonder or the terror of the dream itself. How can a handful of neurons summon oceans, cities, people long gone, and make us believe for a while that they are real? The ancients may have been closer to the truth than we think. They saw the dream not as illusion, but as revelation, a glimpse of what lies beneath consciousness. Maybe that's why, even today, when we wake from a dream that feels too vivid, we lie still for a moment, caught between worlds, our heart whispering, "Was that me or someone else?"
Modern science has mapped nearly every continent of the Earth and peered into galaxies billions of light years away. Yet inside our skulls lies a landscape far stranger, one that still refuses to yield its secrets. We call it the sleeping brain. Under the cool glow of machines, scientists observe neurons flickering like city lights at night. They measure brainwaves, alpha, theta, delta, naming the rhythms as if naming could tame the mystery.
In laboratories, volunteers sleep with wires attached to their temples, their dreams translated into glowing graphs. The researchers know when the body enters REM, when the eyes dart beneath closed lids, when the heartbeat slows to the rhythm of a hidden story. But even with all these tools, one question echoes through the decades. What truly happens when we fall asleep? We know that sleep heals. It clears toxins, repairs cells, consolidates memory. But somewhere in that silence, something more elusive stirs, something science cannot measure. Consciousness dissolving, self fading into something vast. Perhaps that's why dreams still haunt us long after we wake. They feel like postcards from another dimension, signed in a language our waking mind can't read. And maybe that's the point. Because in a world obsessed with control and data, sleep remains the last frontier where mystery reigns. The Egyptians saw the sleeping soul as a traveler. The Greeks called sleep a divine embrace. Modern neuroscience sees it as a recalibration. But what if all three are true? What if every night our minds don't merely rest, they remember what it means to be human, to surrender, to let go, to drift into the unknown and trust that we will find our way back by dawn? In the dark, neurons whisper ancient prayers. The heart slows, the breath softens, and just before consciousness fades, the boundary between science and myth blurs. In that moment, sleep is not a function, it's a return. Every night, as darkness folds around us, the brain performs its most mysterious ritual. Our eyes close, the muscles release, and consciousness drifts into a realm that defies reason. We call it dreaming. Science can describe when dreams happen: during REM sleep, when our eyes flicker beneath closed lids and the brain lights up as if it were awake. But it still cannot explain why they happen, or how a handful of neurons create entire universes behind our eyelids. Why do we forget most of them the moment we open our eyes? Researchers estimate that within 10 minutes of waking, more than 90% of a dream dissolves. What vanishes with it? Entire conversations, landscapes, faces, perhaps messages we were never meant to keep. Yet throughout history, humanity has chased the meaning of those fleeting visions. In ancient Babylon, King Nebuchadnezzar awoke one night, trembling from a dream so vivid it felt divine. He saw a towering statue made of gold, silver, bronze, iron, and clay, each metal crumbling into the next until it fell into dust. None of his scholars could decipher it, until a prisoner named Daniel claimed that the dream was a prophecy of empires yet to come. Whether myth or memory, that story reminds us that dreams have always been more than mental noise. They are the theater of the subconscious, the place where memory, emotion, and imagination collide. Modern neuroscience offers its own translation. It tells us that during REM sleep, the limbic system, The emotional center of the brain glows fiercely, while the prefrontal cortex, the seat of logic, dims. In that imbalance, logic sleeps, but emotion awakens. That is why dreams can break the rules of reality without resistance. We accept impossible things not because we are fooled, but because for a few hours, reason has kindly stepped aside. The ancients called dreams messages from the soul. Today, scientists call them neural simulations. But perhaps both are true, because inside those fragile visions lies a reflection of who we are beneath the surface. Fragile, hopeful, haunted, endlessly searching for meaning. And maybe that's why, even in the stillness of the night, when the world forgets us, our subconscious refuses to be silent.
There is something unsettling about how dreams seem to know what we don't. History is filled with moments when sleep whispered truths that waking minds could not yet see. King Nebuchadnezzar's vision of collapsing empires was only one of many such stories. Centuries later, in ancient Greece, a philosopher named Heraclitus wrote that dreams are the private oracles of the soul. To him, each night was a chance to consult the universe in secret. Even the physician Hippocrates, father of medicine, advised his students to listen to their dreams before diagnosing a patient, believing the body revealed its imbalance through imagery long before symptoms appeared. Modern minds might smile at this, yet the strange connection between dreaming and foreseeing remains unsolved. How do we explain those who dream of an event before it happens? A friend calling, a place burning, a loved one leaving? Science calls them coincidences. But coincidence, after all, is only the name we give to mystery we cannot measure. In 1966, a British psychiatrist named Dr. John Barker investigated a series of dreams reported before a tragic event, the collapse of a coal tip in Aberfan, Wales, that buried a school and claimed 144 lives. Dozens of children had dreamed of black avalanches days before it happened. Barker recorded their accounts in disbelief. Could the subconscious have sensed what reason could not? Neuroscientists say no. Dreams, they argue, are the brain's way of processing random fragments, sorting fear and memory. Yet they too admit that our brains are prediction engines, constantly forecasting the next second, the next danger, the next word. Perhaps in dreams, this predictive machinery runs wild, untethered by logic, blending intuition with chaos. And every once in a while, it stumbles upon truth. That's why prophetic dreams, though rare, have haunted human imagination for millennia, because deep down, we all sense that the subconscious sees farther than we do. When we sleep, the filters fall away. What remains might be nonsense or revelation. And maybe that's why we wake with a shiver, half remembering something that feels too real to ignore,
but too fragile to hold. The strangest thing about dreams is not that they happen, it's that they disappear. Within moments of waking, whole worlds dissolve, faces blur, words melt away like snow in sunlight. Scientists call this dream amnesia, and they've tried for decades to understand it. Some say the culprit lies in chemistry. During REM sleep, the brain releases little to no norepinephrine, the neurotransmitter that helps store memory. Without it, dreams slip through the cracks before they can take form. Others argue it's evolutionary, that remembering every dream would be unbearable, flooding our waking life with confusion. So the brain forgets on purpose. But perhaps forgetting isn't a failure, it's an act of mercy. Imagine if every night's chaos lingered, every distorted image, every impossible fear, every shadow. We would drown in our own subconscious. Forgetting, then, is a quiet gatekeeper, allowing only what we need to stay. Still, every so often, one dream defies that rule. It stays. It claws its way into daylight, a symbol, a warning, a whisper that refuses to fade. These are the dreams we call meaningful, the ones that haunt us because they feel like memory. And maybe, in a way, they are. Modern neuroscience has discovered that the brain replays fragments of the day while we dream, strengthening some connections and pruning others. It's like a gardener tending the garden of the mind, deciding which roots will grow and which will die. That's why we wake up changed, even if we don't remember why. The act of dreaming reshapes us in silence. So when you open your eyes tomorrow and the edges of a dream crumble into nothing, take comfort in the mystery. What you've forgotten might have already done its work, and perhaps that's what dreams truly are. Not messages to decode, but invisible architects of who we become.
It begins the same way for almost everyone. You wake in the middle of the night, eyes open but body frozen. The room looks the same, the faint light from the window, the hum of the fan, but something feels wrong. You try to move your arm, but it won't obey. You try to scream, but no sound comes out. Then you feel it, a presence, heavy, watching. Something unseen pressing against your chest. For centuries, humanity has struggled to name this terror. In medieval Europe, they called it the night hag, a demon that sat upon the sleeper, stealing their breath. Painters of the time even tried to capture it. In Johann Heinrich Fuseli's 1781 painting, The Nightmare, a pale woman lies limp across her bed, while a dark imp crouches on her chest, staring straight at the viewer. It was both horror and fascination, the invisible made visible. But Europe was not alone in its fear. In Vietnam, people whisper of Ma De, the ghost that sits on your chest when you sleep, trapping your voice in your throat. In Japan, they call it kanashibari, which means bound in metal, as if the soul itself has been shackled.
No matter the name, the experience is universal. Around 40% of people on Earth will encounter it at least once in their lives. Science calls it sleep paralysis, but that word hardly captures its dread. During REM sleep, the brain paralyzes the body to keep us from acting out our dreams. Usually, when we wake, the paralysis lifts instantly, but sometimes consciousness rises too soon while the body still sleeps. The result is a haunting paradox. The mind is awake, but the flesh remains trapped. In that liminal state, dream and reality overlap. The shadows move. A figure stands by the door. A whisper grazes your ear. And though you know it's not real, it feels more real than anything you've ever known.
Those who have known sleep paralysis often describe it not as a dream, but as an encounter. It feels personal. The room is familiar, yet somehow wrong. The air feels heavier, as though someone else has entered without sound. And then, the sense of being watched. Throughout history, this moment has been painted, sung, feared, and prayed over. In medieval Europe, priests performed midnight blessings to banish the night demon. People placed iron scissors beneath their pillows, believing the metal could cut through evil. In Scandinavia, they spoke of the Mara, a spirit that pressed on the sleeper's chest and rode them through their dreams. From this word, the English word nightmare was born. The same terror crosses oceans and centuries. In Vietnam, when someone says they were "Be Ma De," everyone understands instantly. The suffocating pressure, the inability to move, the strange awareness of something just beyond sight. In Japan's Kanashibari, it is not a ghost, but an invisible force, a curse that binds body and spirit. Even in modern times, stories appear online. People waking to see a shadow standing by the door, or sitting on the edge of the bed, its face featureless yet unmistakably aware. Neuroscience offers one explanation. During sleep paralysis, the brain's amygdala, the center of fear, fires wildly, while the motor cortex, responsible for movement, remains silent. Unable to run or fight, the mind creates meaning out of terror. The feeling of a presence may be the brain's desperate attempt to explain why it's afraid. Yet knowing the science does not erase the dread. Because when you lie there, unable to move, logic has no power. The boundary between dream and waking blurs, and the oldest part of your brain, one that still remembers predators in the dark, whispers, "Something is here." That whisper is ancient. It's the same one that echoed in caves, temples, and bedrooms for millennia. Science can scan the brain, but it cannot scan the fear that lives inside it. In the still hours before dawn, there is a fragile border where body and spirit lose their balance. Sleep paralysis lives in that borderland,
half in science, half in myth. In the modern age, machines can record the flicker of brain waves during the episode. Researchers see a surge of REM activity, a trapped consciousness flickering inside a motionless frame. Yet, even with all the data, something escapes the explanation. Because what happens in those moments is not just biological, it is existential. It reminds us of how thin the thread of control truly is, how easily the self can be split into watcher and prisoner. In medieval art, that division was drawn as a demon crouching on the chest. Today, neuroscience paints it as electric signals misfiring in the motor cortex. But the feeling, that deep, helpless awareness, remains the same across centuries. We see the same fear in stone gargoyles, in Buddhist scrolls, in the faces of people who wait gasping from the dark. Across cultures, people have always sensed that sleep is not merely rest, but a return to something older than consciousness. In Vietnam, elders say that when the ma day, your soul has wandered too far and forgotten its way back. So they call your name softly to guide it home. In Japan, Kanashibari was once believed to be the work of angry spirits. In the West, it was the devil's hand. And yet, perhaps, all these stories speak to the same truth, that within us, the boundaries between science and spirit are not separate lines, but overlapping waves. When the brain wakes while the body still dreams, those waves collide. What we see, the shadow, the pressure, the whispers, are echoes of that collision. Fear is simply the mind's way of interpreting mystery. But here is the gentle truth. No demon, no ghost, no curse can harm you. What you are feeling is your mind witnessing itself. Consciousness trapped between worlds, waiting for balance to return. Slowly it does. The weight lifts, breath returns. The room softens into morning. And though you may never forget the fear, perhaps next time you'll remember this too. The body sleeps, but the soul is only learning how to wake. We like to think of sleep as a full shutdown, the body resting, the mind off duty, the world outside fading into nothing. But the truth is stranger. Even as you drift into dreams, part of your brain remains awake, watching, listening, waiting. Scientists call this paradox the vigilant brain. It's the reason a mother can hear her baby cry in the next room while she sleeps through every other sound. The reason we jolt awake when someone whispers our name. Deep inside the sleeping brain, certain regions never close their eyes. The thalamus still filters sound, the brainstem still monitors breathing, and the default mode network, the quiet orchestra of self-reflection, continues to hum softly, weaving thoughts in the background like waves beneath still water. To the ancients, this never-sleeping awareness was not science, but soul. The sages of India spoke of yoga nidra, the sleep of the yogis, a state between waking and dreaming, where consciousness remains fully aware while the body rests. In this practice, monks would lie perfectly still, entering a deep calm that mimics sleep, yet keeps the mind lucid. In modern scans, their brains show rhythms similar to REM sleep, yet with unusual coherence, a harmony of theta and alpha waves that defies the typical chaos of dreaming. Tibetan monks describe something similar, the clear light meditation, where awareness stays awake through the night. Some of them sleep only 4 hours a day, yet their bodies are strong, their minds luminous. Science has observed that their slow-wave sleep contains bursts of gamma activity, the same frequency linked to focus, compassion, and creativity. What does this mean? Perhaps that sleep is not an absence of consciousness, but a transformation of it. The brain does not turn off, it simply changes its tune. Beneath the silence, neurons whisper, memories reshape, and awareness hums like a hidden flame. The body sleeps, but the watcher within never does. In a quiet Himalayan monastery, the night begins not with sleep, but with breath. A line of monks sits cross-legged beneath flickering lamps, eyes half closed, bodies motionless. They do not chase dreams, they enter awareness. For centuries, Tibetan masters have spoken of a state called milam, the yoga of dreaming. In it, practitioners train their minds to remain conscious while asleep, moving through dreams with full lucidity. To them, this is not supernatural. It is the art of knowing the mind's true nature. In the 21st century, neuroscientists placed electrodes on the heads of monks who had trained in this practice for decades. What they found astonished them. While most people's brains alternate between chaos and rest, the monks' brains showed harmony. Alpha, theta, and gamma waves dancing together like synchronized bells. The boundary between waking and sleeping seemed to blur into a single continuum of awareness. One monk explained, "When you understand the dream, you understand life." Across the world, modern science has begun to explore this mystery under another name, Yoga Nidra. In sleep laboratories from Boston to Kyoto, researchers measure how practitioners enter a state of profound rest while remaining mentally alert. The heartbeat slows, cortisol levels drop, but brain activity reveals something astonishing. The default mode network, the web of self-reflection and imagination, remains active even as external awareness fades. It is as if the brain never stops listening to itself, to memory, to something deeper. Perhaps this is why monks and long-time meditators can thrive on only 4 hours of sleep a day. Their rest is not shallow, it is efficient. Their minds enter the rhythms of deep sleep without losing coherence. One Tibetan Lama laughed when asked if he ever felt tired. "How can I be tired," he said, "if I never leave myself?" Science can describe the patterns, but not the peace. What these monks reveal is that the brain is not a machine that turns off. It is a river of awareness that simply changes its flow. Sleep, for them, is not the end of consciousness, but its most gentle form. When scientists discovered the default mode network, they thought they had found the brain's idle mode, a system that activates when we rest, daydream, or wander in thought. But over time, something remarkable became clear. This network never fully sleeps. Even in the deepest stages of rest, faint echoes of its rhythm persist, like the steady hum of a galaxy that refuses to go dark. The DMN links the past to the present, weaving memory, identity, and imagination into a seamless flow. It is the quiet storyteller behind our sense of self, the reason we dream, remember, and wonder who we are. During sleep, when logic rests, this network does something extraordinary. It rewrites the self. It takes the fragments of the day, emotions, images, conversations, and rearranges them into patterns that help us heal and grow. It is as if the brain, even while sleeping, continues the conversation with the universe. Ancient mystics might have called this awareness the soul. Modern science calls it the default state of consciousness. But perhaps they are describing the same truth with different languages. Because when all external noise fades, the phone, the city, the heartbeat of daily life, what remains is this subtle hum, the voice beneath all voices. The Tibetan monks call it Rigpa, the pure knowing that observes without judging. Neuroscientists see it as a self-sustaining network of meaning. And both agree on one thing: it never stops. Even when you sleep, it keeps weaving, connecting the invisible dots between memory and mystery. So when you close your eyes tonight, you are not leaving the world, you are returning to it, to the rhythm that runs beneath everything alive. Your body rests, your thoughts dissolve, but the deep intelligence within you continues, quiet and infinite, breathing with the stars. The brain never sleeps, because consciousness itself may be the one thing the universe refuses to let rest. While you sleep, a quiet librarian awakens inside your skull. It moves through the corridors of memory, sorting, labeling, and deciding what will stay and what will fade. This is your hippocampus, the deep structure in the center of the brain that acts like the mind's archivist. Each night, as you drift into dreams, it begins its silent work, replaying moments from the day, replaying them again and again, sometimes 10, sometimes 20 times faster than real life. This replay is not random. It is the way the brain decides which experiences deserve to become part of your story. Some memories are stored, others are gently erased. Science still cannot explain how this selection is made. Why do we remember a scent, a sentence, or a glance while forgetting entire hours? Researchers have watched the hippocampus in sleeping rats replaying their daily maze journeys. The neurons firing in perfect sequence as if reliving the memory. In humans, this same process unfolds each night, reshaping the map of who we are. But here lies the mystery. If memories are replayed, do they change each time they're recalled? Experiments suggest yes. Memory is not a recording, it's a reconstruction. Each time the brain revisits an experience, it edits, softens, or reinterprets it. In this way, our past is rewritten in sleep, becoming less of what happened and more of what we understand. Ancient philosophers called sleep the teacher of the soul. Today, neuroscience proves their intuition. During deep sleep, waves of slow oscillations sweep across the brain like tides, pushing memories from the hippocampus to the cortex, where they become long-term knowledge. It's as if the mind each night moves what it wants to keep from short-term shelves into a vast, eternal library. And somewhere in that transition, memory transforms into wisdom. If sleep is the mind's architect, then geniuses are those who learned how to visit the construction site at will. Consider Albert Einstein, the man who reimagined time itself, yet guarded his own sleep like a sacred ritual. He slept nearly 10 hours a night, often napping through the afternoon as well. "I get my best ideas in dreams," he once said. It wasn't a metaphor. Einstein claimed that the concept of relativity first appeared to him as an image, riding a beam of light through space. The vision struck him not during work, but between waking and sleep, in that fragile liminal state where logic loosens its grip and imagination speaks freely. His friend and biographer, Abraham Pais, later wrote, "Einstein did not invent his theories in equations, he dreamed them first." Then there was Thomas Edison, the opposite kind of dreamer. He despised sleep, calling it a waste of time. Yet he too relied on its hidden gifts. Edison rarely slept more than 4 hours a night, but he practiced a technique that modern psychologists now call hypnagogic incubation. He would doze off in a chair, holding a metal ball in each hand. The moment he slipped into the first layer of sleep, his muscles would relax, the balls would fall, and the noise would wake him, capturing the last spark of insight before it vanished. Many of his inventions, he said, began in that half-dreaming instant. And then there was Nikola Tesla, perhaps the strangest of all. He claimed to sleep only 2 hours a day, believing he could command his brain to rest selectively, one hemisphere at a time, like dolphins do. Tesla's journals reveal that he entered trance-like states where visions appeared vividly before him, fully formed machines turning in his mind's eye. Whether he truly mastered wakeful sleep or merely lived in perpetual lucidity, no one can say. But these men shared one thing. They understood that sleep is not the enemy of genius. It is its collaborator. In those moments between awareness and surrender, the brain becomes an alchemist, fusing logic and dream into discovery. Modern neuroscience now calls this the hypnagogic window, a phase where the hippocampus is replaying memories and the prefrontal cortex loosens its control. It's the place where creativity is born, where a dream can become a theory, an idea, or a revolution.
Every night, the classroom reopens. The students are your neurons, the teacher is your hippocampus, and the lesson is everything you lived that day. As you sleep, your brain reviews, revises, and reinforces. This is not poetry, it's biology. Experiments at MIT showed that when subjects learned a new skill before sleep, a melody, a maze, or a list of words, their performance improved up to 40% by morning. The reason? The hippocampus replays these memories again and again, transferring them into long-term storage while strengthening the connections between neurons. In other words, the brain keeps studying long after the student has gone to bed. This is why the advice, study before sleep, carries ancient wisdom wrapped in modern science. During deep sleep, our memories shift from fragile patterns of short-term firing to durable architectures of understanding. Even dreams play a part. They test, remix, and simulate what we've learned, turning raw information into intuition. One study found that people who dreamed about a task, like navigating a virtual maze, performed twice as well the next day. Dreams, it seems, are not just stories, but rehearsals of the mind. Ancient cultures somehow knew this long before neuroscience did. In India, the practice of evening chanting was believed to fix teachings into the heart. In Greece, philosophers urged their students to sleep with questions, trusting the mind to work in silence. And perhaps they were right, because when the conscious mind surrenders, the deeper mind begins its quiet labor, sorting, sculpting, weaving meaning from fragments. Even Einstein's 10-hour nights or Edison's micronaps fit into this pattern. Rest was not idleness, but collaboration with mystery. Modern research reveals that during slow-wave sleep, bursts of synchronized activity sweep through the brain, like lightning illuminating a landscape. These waves strengthen the very synapses that hold our learning together. So when you lie down tonight, remember, your mind is not resting, it is teaching itself. The night is your second school, the dream your second language, and memory the silent ink that writes who you will become by dawn. Before the industrial age, night was not a single stretch of darkness. It was two acts of rest, separated by an intermission of wakefulness. Historians call it biphasic sleep. Our ancestors would drift into their first sleep soon after sunset, resting for 4 or 5 hours.
Then, around midnight, they would awaken, not in alarm, but in calm. They called it the watch. In that quiet hour, they prayed, wrote letters, tended to animals, or even visited neighbors. Husbands and wives talked softly. Monks meditated, and poets described the hour as the gateway of dreams. After an hour or two, they would return to bed for their second sleep, which lasted until dawn. This rhythm, recorded in diaries and court documents across medieval Europe, was as natural to them as breathing. There was no shame in waking up at night. It was expected. In fact, doctors of the 16th century recommended the interval as a time for reflection and healing, when the body's humors were most balanced. In this world of candlelight and silence, sleep was not a wall between days, but a bridge through them. It allowed time for thought, for prayer, for intimacy. The human brain, it turns out, may have evolved for this pattern. Without artificial light, our internal clock responds to the natural fading of the sun and the deep quiet of midnight. In modern experiments, when people live without electric light, their sleep spontaneously divides into two phases again. Around the 8th hour of darkness, they wake gently, feeling alert and peaceful before drifting back into the second sleep. This suggests that what we call insomnia today might once have been a normal feature of human rest. The ancestors who woke at midnight weren't broken. They were in harmony with the Earth's rhythm.
The disappearance of two-part sleep did not happen overnight. It dimmed slowly, like the fading of stars before dawn. When the first streetlights flickered to life in London around the 17th century, they were hailed as progress, the victory of light over darkness. But something subtle began to change. The night was no longer a realm of silence. It became an extension of the day. Factories demanded longer hours. The clocks on church towers dictated when to wake, when to eat, when to rest. Sleep, once shaped by the sun and the moon, was now bound to the rhythm of machines. By the late 1800s, electric light had spread across cities, washing away the sacred intervals of night. The first sleep and second sleep disappeared from diaries, replaced by a single continuous rest, shorter, compressed, and more restless. The human brain, however, did not evolve so quickly. Inside our skulls, the pineal gland still releases melatonin when the world grows dark, expecting true night. But under the glow of lamps, our bodies no longer know when that night begins. Researchers found that even a single hour of artificial light after sunset can delay the brain's melatonin cycle by 90 minutes. The mind, once tuned to the soft cues of dusk, now fights against a digital sun that never sets. And so we lie awake longer, our dreams thinner, our awakenings harsher. Historians sometimes call this the quiet revolution of fatigue. It changed more than our sleep. It changed our relationship with darkness. Our ancestors saw the night as sacred, a space for reflection and renewal.
We have turned it into productivity's final frontier. Yet, somewhere in our biology, the old rhythm still waits. When modern volunteers live without clocks or screens, their sleep gently divides again into two halves, proof that ancient patterns remain encoded in us like forgotten music. Perhaps the real mystery is not how we lost it, but how easily we could find it again by dimming the lights and letting the stars resume their watch.
While much of the modern world forgot the art of rest, a few cultures quietly kept the memory alive. In southern Spain, as the sun reaches its blinding peak, shutters close and streets fall silent. It is time for the siesta, the sacred nap of the afternoon. To outsiders, it may seem like laziness, but to those who live it, it is wisdom shaped by centuries. Farmers, poets, and philosophers alike understood that the human body moves in rhythms larger than the clock. The siesta is not just sleep, it's surrender, a way of aligning with the Earth's heartbeat. Studies now show that short naps in the early afternoon lower stress, improve memory, and even reduce the risk of heart disease. The Spanish, it seems, preserved a fragment of the old biphasic rhythm, a day split into two gentle awakenings. On the other side of the world, Japan developed a different form of remembering, inamuri, which means sleeping while present. In the rush of trains and offices, Japanese workers sometimes close their eyes for a few minutes, not to escape, but to reset. It is an accepted form of public rest, seen as diligence rather than idleness. The message is quiet but profound. Rest does not oppose work, it completes it. In monasteries from Kyoto to Kerala, monks still follow the ancient sleep cycles, resting before midnight, waking for meditation, then returning to a lighter second sleep. Their bodies have not forgotten what our cities have erased. And perhaps this is the deeper truth hidden beneath all the research and rhythm. Sleep is not just a biological necessity, but a cultural expression of how we live with time. Our ancestors slept in harmony with darkness, with community, with silence. Today, our challenge is not to sleep more, but to sleep wiser. Maybe the answer lies not in the blue glow of our devices, but in rediscovering the humility to pause, to listen to the quiet between breaths, to remember that rest too is a form of intelligence. If evolution is nature's ruthless editor, then sleep is its strangest exception. Every hour we spend asleep, we're vulnerable, blind, defenseless, still. For millions of years, predators could have easily taken advantage of such helplessness. Yet every animal, from the smallest mouse to the largest whale, still sleeps. Why? This is one of the greatest unsolved questions in all of neuroscience. Scientists have mapped galaxies and decoded the genome, but the reason for sleep, the most universal behavior in the animal kingdom, remains elusive. What is so vital that evolution refused to remove it? When you think about it, sleep makes no sense from a survival standpoint. While asleep, you can't eat, can't mate, can't run from danger, and yet no species can truly live without it.
Rats deprived of sleep die faster than those deprived of food. Humans lose their sanity before they lose their heartbeat. After 3 sleepless nights, we begin to hallucinate. After 10, we break. Even in the most extreme environments, life finds a way to rest. Dolphins, for example, have evolved to sleep with half their brain at a time. One hemisphere stays awake to surface for air and watch for threats, while the other enters deep rest. Migratory birds sleep while flying, alternating microseconds of slumber between wings. Reptiles, elephants, even insects share this rhythm in their own way. It's as if the universe whispered to every form of life, "You must rest even if you can't afford to." Perhaps sleep is not a weakness, but a secret architecture, a way for life to pause and rewrite itself. When we close our eyes, cells repair, neurons reconnect, and consciousness resets its compass. Evolution, it seems, did not make a mistake in keeping sleep. It made an investment in survival, memory, and meaning.
When the body falls asleep, the brain does not. It begins its night shift, a quiet, methodical process of repair and renewal. Deep inside, between the folds of gray matter, a hidden network awakens, the glymphatic system. Discovered only in the past decade, this system works like a nocturnal cleaning crew. It opens the brain's drainage channels, flushing out metabolic waste that builds up during the day. Proteins like beta amyloid and tau, which, when left behind, are linked to Alzheimer's disease. During wakefulness, these toxins accumulate like dust in sunlight. During sleep, cerebrospinal fluid pulses through the brain, washing the cells clean. In a single night of deep rest, the brain removes nearly 60% more waste than it does while awake. It's as if sleep is a nightly detox, not for the body, but for the self. But cleaning is only part of the story. While the glymphatic system clears debris, neurons themselves perform a different kind of housekeeping. Each day, synapses, the connections between brain cells, grow stronger as we learn, think, and experience. By night, they need to shrink, a process scientists call synaptic downscaling. Imagine the brain as a forest of electric vines. During the day, they grow wildly, connecting everything to everything. During sleep, the overgrowth is trimmed. The unnecessary branches fall away, leaving behind only the essential pathways. This pruning prevents the brain from overloading, making space for new memories, insights, and ideas. In this sense, sleep is not rest, it's recalibration. Some researchers even describe it as the brain's form of meditation, a time when consciousness releases control and allows nature to reorganize thought itself. The mystery, though, runs deeper. Why does consciousness need to disappear for this to happen? Why can't we simply rest awake? Perhaps the loss of awareness is not a flaw, but a requirement.
the silence needed for the orchestra to hear itself again. The brain must dim the self to hear itself again. Every night, we surrender to something we cannot fully explain. We lie down, close our eyes, and let go of the body, the world, and even ourselves. In that act of surrender lies one of the oldest lessons of nature. To renew, we must first release. Philosophers from every age have recognized sleep as the mirror of life and death, the little death that teaches us how to let the mind dissolve without fear. The Stoics wrote that each night the soul rehearses its return to the universe. Hindu texts describe sleep as the reunion of Atman, the individual self, with Brahman, the infinite whole. To the Buddhists, deep sleep without dreams resembles the luminous void of enlightenment, where thought finally rests in awareness itself. Science may measure the waves, but it cannot measure what it means to close one's eyes and vanish into the dark, trusting that morning will come. In that trust, there is faith, not religious, but biological. Perhaps that is why even the most rational mind, even the most advanced machine, still cannot replicate the mystery of sleep. For sleep is not merely a function, it is a ritual of belonging, the moment when consciousness returns to its source. Neuroscientists sometimes call it homeostasis, but the poets knew better. It is homecoming. As the brain clears toxins and resets memories, something deeper resets too. The fragile balance between control and surrender. To live awake forever would be to burn endlessly. To sleep is to cool the flame and remember we are not machines. Dolphins may sleep with half a brain. Birds may nap in flight. But humans dream. And in those dreams, the universe speaks back. Maybe that is the truest answer to why we sleep. Not to rest, but to remember that we belong to something vast and rhythmic, a cosmos that breathes through us each night and wakes with us each dawn. It began as a high school experiment. A 17-year-old boy named Randy Gardner decided to stay awake, not for glory, but for curiosity. The year was 1964, and sleep was still a scientific afterthought. No one had truly measured what would happen if a human refused to sleep for days. Randy lasted for 264 hours, 11 days and 25 minutes. By the second night, his speech slurred. By the fourth, his eyes twitched uncontrollably. On the sixth, he began to hallucinate, street signs speaking, shadows whispering. Yet when doctors examined his brain, something extraordinary appeared. Different regions were shutting down and restarting in turns, as if the mind was trying to protect itself from collapse. Portions of his cortex would microsleep for a few seconds, even as he stood awake. It was as though his consciousness flickered like a dying candle, refusing to go dark but no longer whole. By day 11, he had lost the ability to tell dreams from reality. Still, his body clung to life. When he finally slept, he did not fall into endless rest as scientists predicted. Instead, he slept for just 14 hours, then woke, restored but forever changed. His case remains one of neuroscience's most haunting questions. Why did the brain not simply shut down? Why did it fight to stay conscious at the cost of reason? Later brain scans of sleep-deprived patients revealed what Randy's mind had demonstrated. The human brain can fragment itself. It turns off areas one by one, like a city losing power district by district, preserving the essentials: breathing, heartbeat, awareness. In essence, when we refuse to sleep, the brain sleeps without us. It begins a civil war within itself, dividing to survive. That paradox of a brain both awake and asleep is perhaps the truest face of modern life.
There is a disease so rare that only 40 families in the world are known to carry it. Yet it exposes one of the deepest horrors of biology. It is called fatal familial insomnia. A single defective gene locks the brain in a state of endless wakefulness. Those who inherit it are cursed to remain awake until death. It begins subtly: a few restless nights, strange dreams, a fluttering heartbeat. Within months, sleep vanishes entirely. The body still tires, the eyes still burn, but the mind cannot cross the threshold into unconsciousness. MRI scans show that the thalamus, the gatekeeper of sleep, withers away, leaving the brain's circuits stuck in perpetual alert. As weeks pass, patients drift into delirium, hallucinating entire realities that bleed into waking life. After 6 months, language falters. After a year, the mind disintegrates. There is no cure. Sedatives fail. Even under anesthesia, the brain refuses to yield. It is as though something ancient within the mind, that primal guardian of awareness, has forgotten how to surrender. One Italian man documented his descent in a diary. "I can feel my body begging for night, but my mind stands guard. I am awake, and awake, and awake." He died after 18 months. Doctors could only watch, powerless, as his brain burned itself out. This curse is not new. Medieval texts describe prisoners tortured by sleeplessness, kept awake for days under dripping water or blinding light until their minds broke. In the 15th century, Chinese records speak of interrogation by wakefulness, the victim's spirit collapsing long before the flesh. After 7 nights, one account reads, they confessed everything, true or not. Sleep deprivation, it seems, is not merely exhaustion. It is disintegration. It peels away the layers of the self, revealing something raw and ancient beneath. In the 20th century, psychologists studying sensory deprivation
found that even mild sleep loss can induce paranoia, auditory hallucinations, and the eerie sense of floating outside one's own body. The brain begins to dream while awake, a state modern researchers call microsleep intrusions. You see visions with open eyes, hear voices in silence. It is not madness, it is the brain's last defense. When consciousness refuses to rest, the mind creates its own dreams to survive. Perhaps that is the final mercy nature allows. Even in hell, the brain still tries to dream.
So, if the past feared sleeplessness as a curse, then the present has made it a lifestyle. We are living in the first civilization that tries to live without night. The soft blue light of our screens, the hum of cities, the 24-hour feed of thoughts and notifications, all whisper the same command: stay awake. 1 in 3 adults now suffers from chronic insomnia. Generation Z sleeps 2 hours less each night than their parents. The difference may sound small, but over a lifetime, it's the loss of almost 7 years of dreaming. Scientists at Harvard found that blue light from a smartphone suppresses melatonin by 55% more than white light, fooling the brain into believing it's noon even at midnight. We scroll through glowing portals, chasing meaning, connection, or distraction, while the brain, desperate for rhythm, begins to rebel. The pineal gland, that ancient compass of circadian rhythm, loses its sense of time. Cortisol rises, memory weakens, empathy fades. The mind starts to mistake stimulation for wakefulness, but they are not the same. We are awake, yes, but hollow. Sleep, once a sacred rhythm, has become a casualty of ambition. And yet the irony is sharp. The more we chase productivity, the less the brain produces meaning. Studies show that after 24 hours without sleep, the brain functions as if intoxicated with 0.1% blood alcohol, enough to impair judgment, empathy, and creativity. At 48 hours, auditory hallucinations begin. At 72, we start to lose reality. By 96 hours, paranoia blooms. The brain begins to micro-sleep even while walking, driving, or typing, an unconscious act of survival. In a cruel twist of evolution, the brain will force rest, even if it kills the body to do it. Modern sleep deprivation, then, is not just a medical problem. It is an existential rebellion. We have built a world that demands endless alertness, but offers no true awakening. We glorify hustle and caffeine as badges of honor, forgetting that every cup borrowed from sleep must one day be repaid in silence. The debt of rest is the most unforgiving one.
Some neuroscientists now believe the epidemic of anxiety and burnout is the direct echo of a species out of sync with its oldest rhythm, the pulse of day and night. Perhaps insomnia is not a failure of biology, but a cry of the mind. Let me stop. Let me feel time again.
For thousands of years, our ancestors did not force sleep. They invited it. In the temples of India, monks practice pranayama, slow, rhythmic breathing that quieted the heart and whispered to the nervous system, "You are safe now." In the Himalayan monasteries, Tibetan monks entered a trance called Yoga Nidra, a waking sleep so deep that 30 minutes could restore the brain as 4 hours of ordinary rest. NASA would later test it for astronauts, proving that ancient stillness can outshine modern medicine. Meditation, the silent teacher of awareness, reduces the time needed for deep sleep by 40%. It strengthens the delta waves, the slow hum of restoration, and teaches the brain that peace is not something to be earned, but something to return to. The ancients knew what we have forgotten. The brain does not need to be forced to sleep. It needs to be taught how to rest. Modern neuroscience now confirms it. The parasympathetic nervous system, the body's built-in brake pedal, awakens only when we stop chasing. Deep breathing, stillness, gratitude, these are not spiritual poetry. They are biological switches. They tell the brain, the hunt is over. You may rest. And then sleep comes, not as surrender, but as alignment. Perhaps that is the final revelation. Your brain is not your enemy. Every sleepless night is not rebellion. It is a message, a whisper from the deepest circuits of your mind saying something within you still feels unsafe. The question then is no longer, how can I force sleep, but what part of me is afraid to rest? Because when the mind feels safe, sleep becomes natural again, as effortless as the tide returning to shore. The science may not yet solve every mystery, but the silence of the ancients already holds the answer. Sleep is not defeat, it is enlightenment. The nightly reminder that to live well, we must learn how to let go. So tonight, as you lie in bed, remember, your brain has evolved for millions of years not to destroy you, but to protect you. It has watched the stars rise and fall, the fires of civilization burn and fade, and still it keeps you alive. Do not fight it. Listen. Trust the rhythm that has guided all life since the dawn of time. Close your eyes, not to escape the world, but to return to it, renewed. Tonight, when you lie down, remember this. Your brain has spent millions of years evolving to protect you. It is not your enemy. It is your oldest guardian. Every restless night, every racing thought, every whisper of fear is not betrayal, but communication. Your mind is saying, I am still learning how to rest. Don't fight it. Work with it. Breathe with it. Let it know you're listening. For sleep is not a command, it's a conversation. You don't fall into it, you return to it. So when the dark wraps around you tonight, trust it. It is not emptiness. It is the oldest rhythm in the universe, the inhale and exhale of existence itself. And as you drift into that quiet, remember, you are part of something ancient, vast, and endlessly kind. A consciousness that never stops watching over itself, even in dreams. Have you ever experienced one of these sleep mysteries yourself? Share your story in the comments. Your words might help someone else understand their own mind a little better. Subscribe to Timeless Murmurs to explore more mysteries, not just of history, but of the human soul, where science still searches for answers.